It's 3 a.m. and you're awake again, too tired to get up, too wired to sleep. In the morning, your tracker says 7 hours, so you tell yourself you're fine, you have a coffee, file the whole thing under normal, and get on with your day. But what if this is actually a smoke signal? Not a reason to panic, there's no fire yet, but a reason to pay attention. Because some of the signals you notice in perimenopause, you've probably never connected to your heart, but they are a window into our future heart health, and they're way more fixable than we think. By the end of this video, you'll know 2 important signals to look for in this phase of life, why the numbers that reassure you can be the ones misleading you, and what to do about it. No 10-step routine, that's a promise. This is the final video in a short series on heart health and perimenopause because this is a time of life where our physiology starts to slip and small changes will have big effects. And I just don't see enough people talking about it. In case you're new, I'm Dr. Nina Kay. I'm a GP, previously a gynecologist, and I'm also a mum of 3 in my 40s. So I've been sat on both sides of the desk and I know how it feels. Now let's talk about the 2 levers I think that get overlooked the most. If you're the type to track anything, you probably track how long you slept, hours in bed, hours of sleep, a tiny number in the morning. And that number can look completely respectable while the sleep underneath it is a mess. In perimenopause, the problem usually isn't the total number of hours you've slept, it's the fragmentation of sleep. The research that's followed women right through the perimenopausal transition shows, or the menopausal transition, shows that difficulty sleeping increases as you move through this phase of life, from around 1/3 of women premenopausal to closer to half by late perimenopause. And unlike maybe in younger years, at least for me anyway, the main complaint isn't struggling to fall asleep, it's waking in the night and not getting back to sleep. Maybe you could call it the 3 a.m. club, which is not a super extreme version of the 5 a.m. club. It's much less fun, although 5 a.m. club doesn't sound much fun to me, but it's night sweats, vivid dreams. It's sometimes something you kind of put your finger on, you just keep waking up. So how does all this relate to your heart? Poor sleep quality doesn't just affect the next day. Perimenopause affects in a way that it just doesn't in early life. When researchers look at women in perimenopause specifically, poorer sleep quality appears to track with stiffer arteries and, let's say, less friendly metabolic markers of health. Because that link shows up in midlife in a way it doesn't in younger women, it suggests that this is a stage of life where poor sleep is vital to tackle for our long-term health. One thing to note here is that the data on this is observational. That means that these 2 things go hand in hand. It doesn't tell us that broken sleep itself is like reaching in and stiffening the arteries. And it doesn't prove that fixing your sleep is going to prevent a heart attack. Poor sleep, low mood, hot flushes, pain, all tangled together, and it's basically impossible to pull one thread out. But the direction of travel is enough, and it's consistent enough, that we can't just ignore it. Quality sleep is so much more than something that's just nice to have, and something that's going to make you feel better in the morning. It's doing real work on your heart and your metabolism while you're not looking. And now the second lever. And this is the one that you may not have considered because you think you're too young. I mean, you're in your 40s, you're basically well, nobody's mentioned it except maybe a brief check at GP appointment for a unrelated matter. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't announce itself. And in midlife women, it very often just goes unmeasured for years. However, in perimenopause, the clusters of so-called vasomotor symptoms, that is hot flushes, night sweats, and alongside that broken sleep, they correlate, travel together with a higher chance of developing high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease in later life. Women with more frequent and persistent hot flushes seem to carry more risk of this as well. And honestly, like with so many things in this phase, we don't know that the hot flushes are causing it. It's unlikely that they're the cause. It's just that the hot flushes are an invisible signal of something happening in your cardiovascular system, your blood vessels underneath it all. It's like the smoke, but not the fire. But that's exactly why it's worth acting on. If your body is waving a flag and saying that something's going on, we should be paying attention. The sensible response isn't to panic, it's to go and check the things that matter and try to keep them under control as best as possible. Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your sugar. Now there's the 2 things. So here's the useful part. And it's shorter than you expect, which is rather the point. The first move to do isn't a fix, it's a question. What's actually breaking your sleep? What is affecting your sleep quality if it's affected? Because the answer changes what you do. If you are suffering from hot flushes and night sweats, and this is what's causing your broken sleep, then HRT could be the answer. We don't prescribe HRT for heart protection, but if it settles your hot flushes and gets your nights back and helps you to sleep, that is symptom relief. And symptom relief is a completely valid reason to consider it. It's not heart treatment, but better sleep is a knock-on effect. It's like a welcome bonus. And in return, this will probably protect your heart in the future. The second thing to do is to check your blood pressure. You can do this one for yourself. A validated home blood pressure monitor is fairly cheap. If you're wanting to get one that is very accurate, the British Hypertension Society has a list on its website. When you check your blood pressure, make sure you do it twice. Note down the second reading, make sure that you're sat down, and make sure that you're relaxed. One high reading is not a disaster. Unless it's really, really high, then of course seek medical help. But generally, we like to take a pattern across a week or two. And if you notice that it's on the higher side, go to a GP and discuss it. One more action to consider, because it actually hits both levers at once, and that is alcohol. That evening glass of wine feels like it helps you sleep, and it probably does help you to drop off. But even a couple of drinks pushes back and shortens your REM sleep, and the disruption is worse in the second half of the night, which is the half of the night that you're already losing sleep because of perimenopause. It also nudges your blood pressure up, and the effect is dose dependent. So cutting back anything is going to bring things down. I'm not going to tell you to give up wine. Blanket bans definitely don't survive real life, particularly busy working mum life. But if you're looking for one thing to change, this is a strong contender, because it's the one thing working against sleep and your blood pressure at the same time. So less is definitely more here. If you have a sleep tracker like an Oura ring, you may be able to work out the limit at which alcohol affects your sleep. For me, I've discovered using my Oura ring that about as one small, unfortunately, glass of wine is acceptable, depending on when I drink it, which time of the day when I'm going to sleep. But generally, I find that anything more than that just isn't worth it with small kids because of the knock-on effect on my sleep. Now, all this being said, since you have enough on your plate already, is trying to optimize these things even worth the trouble? And I'd argue it is, simply because everything I've suggested is low cost, it's low risk, and bonus points, it will also make you feel better now, regardless of the long-term outcome. There's basically no downside. The upside, however, is a healthier heart into old age, more time with your kids and grandkids. And that's a bet on I'll take every day of the week. Now, finally, as I like to always do, let's try to collapse this down into a single simple action that you can take to move the needle a little bit and not make it too overwhelming, or a video that you watch and never do anything about, which is probably even worse. So if you do one thing, get a home blood pressure monitor. It will always be useful. Take a few readings across the week. If anything looks off, show it to your GP. If it doesn't, note baseline. That's it. One number you've probably never looked at, finally looked at, measured, and you know where you're going from here. If you want to go a step further, I prepared a free guide that went along with the first video, and it talks through some of the female-specific risk factors that you may not be aware of, or maybe even have never even discussed with you, that can affect your heart health. It also talks about some of the blood tests you can get from your GP, and some you might want to consider privately, and how to interpret them and what they mean. I'll link it in the description below. And that's the series. Thank you for watching. If you've watched all four, you've now got the full picture. What's changing, why this decade is the wind of opportunity for our heart health as midlife women, and a handful of things that genuinely move the needle. And I think at the start of this series, I called perimenopause the window of opportunity for your heart, and I really meant it. The more I've researched this topic, and sorry, that is my baby making that noise, the more I've realized that we really can make big shifts. And I just don't see people talking about it, but we should be, because heart disease is one of the biggest killers of women worldwide. It's not just a man's disease. And as we live longer, it's something that we really need to take into consideration. Sleep and blood pressure are the final part of the picture, alongside the other things we discussed in the series. If you haven't watched them, go back and watch them. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had your blood pressure checked? Is it high already? Or is this a nudge that you need to check it? Sleep well, or at least better than last night. That's the whole plan. And I will see you next time. Ciao for now.